Oh, hi. I was just reading my favorite new paper, the Josephine County Eagle. Check out the voter recommendations. I agree with all of them, especially Herman Berchigger's column on the proposed fire district. Now, understand that in addition to all the money asks on the May ballot, the county is entering into another funding crisis reminiscent of 2012. Check out the county's YouTube page for budget conversations that make that abundantly clear. I'm Mike Jones, and this here is my friend Brian Pombo. Welcome,
Hi
Brian.
there.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Oh, what's going on? Anything new?
No, it just seems like there's new stuff all the time.
Yes, I know.
It's
Now,
like it's just constantly happening.
we both showed up at the rally around the flag event this weekend. What was your impression of that?
It was quite a crowd. I had seen it one other time, I believe, and the crowds have grown. And everyone I talked to that have been to the other ones, they said this was the largest crowd they've seen up till now.
Mm,
Just a whole lot of people that are participating and wanting to do something, wanting to make a difference. Just with all the crazy changes going on right now.
for sure. It seems as though we're on the downside of the COVID yo-yo again, uh, and there's extreme restrictions by the governor is going to be affecting businesses here locally. Um, I stopped in the other day at the gold miner cafe there, and I was not able to get an interview with Nancy. She's a little shy, and I totally get that. But I hope that people will stop by her GoFundMe page. That's Gold Miner. If you just go to GoFundMe.com or is it .net? I forget which it is. Anyway,
I believe it's .com. Yeah.
okay, so GoFundMe anyway, and look for a gold miner in Grants Pass, and you'll find it. She definitely needs the help. She got hit with a $18,000 fine that is, it's aiming to put her out of business. And I would assume that a lot of other restaurants in town are dealing with the same thing. They just perhaps don't have the cojones that Nancy has. So God bless her for that. But anyway, I was reading this article on KDRV.com, and I think this was carried statewide. Governor Brown said, I was presented with data showing two paths that Oregon could take. One in which we took no additional action and stood by while more people die from this disease, and another that required temporary tightening of restrictions for certain counties, but could save hundreds of lives and prevent as many as 450 hospitalizations over the next 3 weeks. As your governor, I chose to save lives. Well, that's certainly an easy choice to make. Makes you look like you're the good guy.
That's right. Well,
Yes.
it's funny. They can take a subject, and all the politicians do this. They can take a subject that there is no real super clear science across the board that everyone's in agreement with, and then they can make absolute statements like that. Like this is about saving lives or letting people die, and I chose to save lives. It's like, oh, well, yeah,
Yeah.
everyone
How do you
can
argue
make
with
that
that?
choice. How
Yeah.
do you
It's,
argue with that?
yeah.
But that's not what's actually being presented. There are discussions on all sides as to how to handle this thing properly. The problem is that one side has decided to shut down any type of discussion whatsoever about how to go about handling this, as if there's one way to handle it, and if you don't believe it, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a discussion with Lily Morgan the other night, and this is one of the topics that came up. Here's that clip.
Here we go into another lockdown today where they're shutting our restaurants that have been essential, that spent gobs of money to be protective and be safe. And it's only 2% of outbreaks have even come from restaurants in this whole time. Such a low number. We only have 9 people in all of Asante hospitals right now that have COVID. The numbers are so low as far as being super ill. I'm not saying that people aren't getting ill. They absolutely are. It is a legitimate virus.
Yes.
But the chances of getting ill in the restaurant is low. The chances of getting ill outside is low. It doesn't justify the shutdown and putting our businesses out of work.
Unfortunately, now we can object, but what else can we do? We have business owners here that when they go out on a limb and try to buck this, they essentially can be legitimately attacked by the state by the use of OSHA. What do you recommend to small restaurant owners in dealing with this?
It's been a frustration the whole time. And, everybody is pointing out that right now, Baker City City Council passed a resolution declaring an emergency against the shutdown. I don't know if that will protect their businesses or not. Usually declaring an emergency only means that you can route resources like money away from what they were budgeted towards what the emergency is dealing with. So that's usually the extent of what an emergency does. It gives you the power to spend money differently than you budgeted and in an approved budget process. That's all an emergency does. As far as government emergency, you can allocate resources differently than budgeted. So Baker City declaring that emergency is great. Does that mean OSHA is not going to show up and go after businesses? I don't know. The hard part is keep having people say, hey, you're a legislator, take away the governor's authority. Okay, we introduced several bills. I signed on as a sponsor with 3177 that you can't discriminate against one type of business group when you have others open. And so restaurants wouldn't be closed while you have big box stores open and that kind of thing. Not any of them got moved to the floor. None of them passed, even with bipartisan support. Several bills to reduce the governor's authority and bring it back to the legislature didn't even get a hearing. Legislature passes laws. The governor is the executive branch, carries out those laws and sets the policies related to those laws. We do not have authority over her employees. We can call in a director and have a count. We've asked for that for OSHA. The Republican House Minority Leader has asked for a hearing in committee to have OSHA defend the rules they're about to pass. But we're not getting feedback. We're not hearing what science is behind these decisions. We're simply pointing to science at the federal level that's being ignored.
Well, you know what? I dove in pretty deep in the beginning of this whole virus thing. And, because I wanted to understand it. And it became clear very, very early on that if you don't, if you're susceptible to it, if you're older or you have pre-existing conditions, it's totally appropriate for you to avoid other contact with other people. But for younger people or generally healthy people under 50, there's a very little likelihood that you're going to get it, or not that you're going to get it, because you may get it, but it won't kill you. Now, that's little consolation to somebody who's really gotten hammered by it. We have some mutual friends who have been really hammered by this thing, and it's an unfortunate thing. It does affect some people really badly, but in any event, I agree that I think you could have both things happening at one time. I think that you could have people being appropriately cautious and businesses still doing business so that we don't destroy the economy along with, a bunch of people dying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not? And I think the main issue is that we're not even allowed to talk about that.
Yes, exactly.
That you're not even allowed to question authority. And I thought we had gotten over that years ago, but I guess not.
Yeah, it's kind of a new political correctness that has been, in the last year. You have this new political wokeness, and that's a different thing. But then you also have COVID wokeness, and you can't violate either one of those. So you're not allowed to, have an opinion about either one of those. Now, you may have noticed in that clip that I had my Andromeda background, and and I was criticized by a friend of mine. Yeah, that's kind of spacey. So I went with the thing that everybody's doing on their Zoom calls right now. Put a bunch of books behind you to make you look like you're really a learned individual.
Yep.
Okay, so the next topic is Senate Bill 554. And that's the new gun control legislation, which essentially states, there's more to it than this, but this kind of boils it down into a nutshell. You have to have a trigger lock or a cable lock, and it has to be locked either inside another container or in a specific room. So assuming that is not your bedroom, and somebody breaks into your house in the middle of the night, you're going to have to run down the hallway, and in the stress of that moment, remember the combination, or where did I put the key? I'm reminded of a saying, when seconds count, the police are just minutes away. And in our case, I'm quite rural in the county. I think you're kind of rural too. I'm going to be probably 40 minutes, and you never know where a deputy is in this county. The deputy who responds to my location, he may be sitting in Cave Junction at the time when he gets the dispatch. So
that's right.
That's a very difficult thing. But Lily, last Friday night, spoke to that too, and here's that.
It started as a prohibition on concealed handgun license holders carrying on public lands. And they essentially, that's what the law currently is that in public buildings, you cannot carry a firearm, but it gave exception for concealed handgun license holders. And this bill was taking that exception away and increasing the capacity of special districts or school districts and cities and counties from excluding concealed handgun license holders to carry on their properties as well. Well, I can tell you that in Josephine County, you don't know whose property is what. For instance, today I went to a local business and there's a public parking across the street where people can rent spaces or it's open to the public. That could technically be prohibited from somebody carrying a concealed handgun because it is city property if the city council voted to endorse this legislation. Separately, there was a bill on the House side, 2510, that would require safe storage of firearms, where you have to have a gun lock on your firearm in your home at all times or anywhere that you keep your gun. So not just a trigger lock or a lock on the gun, but also within a locked box. Additionally, if your firearm was stolen, it would be a crime if you did not report it stolen within 72 hours. And if your gun is used in the course of a crime within 2 years, you would be held negligent for that crime. And they added a line that said, there's no defense against negligence for reasonable storage. So no matter what efforts you took to secure your firearm, you would be negligent if it were stolen. So how would you know that? I mean, let's say you're not aware that the gun has been stolen, and in many cases it may be the case. People have rooms with guns in them that they don't check on for perhaps even a year, and not know. I mean, how would they reconcile that? They didn't. And those were some of the concerns that we had. So what happened is they took both those bills and they merged them into Senate Bill 554 after all public hearings were done, and they passed through an amendment that not only can the special districts, the buildings, but also their grounds. The one in the amendment is they took out the emergency clause. So from the date the governor signs it, you have 90 days to collect enough signatures to get it on the ballot that the voters can overturn the law. The emergency clause was in 2510, which would have meant it went right into effect the day it passes. So at least now there is a 90-day delay that you can collect signatures for it. But, this was our argument, as statistics show that if you have gone through the process of obtaining a concealed handgun license, you are the least likely group to commit a crime.
Right.
The most law-abiding group out there are concealed handgun license holders, even more so than law enforcement officers.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
And 16% of mass shootings are stopped by concealed handgun license holders that actually engage the shooter and stop them. You are taking the most law-abiding group and making them criminals, and you are making criminals out of victims. That's not okay.
That's not okay, man. I agree. I mean, as she stated there, in the case of concealed handgun license holders, they are less likely than law enforcement officers to use their gun in a crime. And so, what this does is it immediately makes, because listen, rural people who need to have access to the guns on short notice are not going to obey this law. They're not going to. I mean, they can't. If they do, then they're putting their life at risk, and if they don't, then they're a criminal. It's a catch-22. So, what was the natural question to ask of our sheriff at the rally here the other day? And that's what are you going to do about 554? And I believe that is this clip right here.
And I just want to let you know where I stand on Senate Bill 554. You will never see a sheriff's deputy in your homes, around them, or even addressing this issue. Ever. It's still a law. And I can't, or will be, probably. And I can enforce it. I don't got the time. I gotta go get a sandwich. Kind of take a good 7, relax, whatever, get a burger. I'm good, gotta eat too, right? But that particular bill on the front end with the concealed carry it really got washed down. I'm not as concerned about that portion of it, but you stay the hell out of my home.
Stay the hell out of my home. Yes, I appreciate. I haven't always seen eye to eye on with this sheriff on everything, but I appreciate the support of people's Second Amendment rights.
Well, and it seems like an easy stance to take.
Yes.
Honestly, anywhere, but especially in Southern Oregon.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, there's no reason why someone should not take that position. These people, they're not only turning lawful people into criminals, they're turning criminals into victims. It's the same politicians. Everything's backwards.
Yeah.
They see the whole world backwards. They can't. If you step back and look at what they've actually done and think about how could you possibly come to this conclusion? The answer will never be good. There's no way you're going to be able to find a good reason for them doing this unless they're clinically insane or they have ulterior motives. And either one is not a good sign for a politician.
Yeah, I had a friend refer to it as unsane. And unsane being, equivalent somehow to evil. I sometimes wonder, especially in the last year when stuff just seems so obvious. You got Kamala Harris encouraging people to continue, burning cities down because that's somehow good and is going to bring a good outcome. You have to wonder if they really believe that, or are they just evil, But an interesting thing, at the rally here the other day, Herman Berchiger got up and he gave a little hint as to why perhaps the governor's state of emergency is going on for so long. And here's that.
The pandemic will be over when the legislature is adjourned, because as long as she has the emergency, the Republicans really cannot successfully deny quorum, because then it only takes whoever shows up. If only 10 senators show up in that building, it takes 6 of them to pass legislation. The Democrats will do anything to win. They no longer want to represent the people. They no longer want to govern. They want to rule with an iron fist. That's what is going on, and that's what they want. And, a lot of them even say that.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, and that sort of feeds into my paranoia about them actually being evil as opposed to just insane.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think I think when you're talking good and evil, I think it's a pretty thin line there between crazy and evil. I think they kind of tie into the same things a lot of times. A lot of times people come from a really horrible background. And for example, I know an older gentleman that he's got these racist tendencies that just kind of pop out in everyday conversation. Well, you come to find out he was in the Hitler Youth as a child.
Oh, wow.
He had no choice in it. And so is that trauma? Is it this? Is it, well, you can't deny that the Nazis were an evil regime produce and pushing
Absolutely.
forth an evil agenda. But does that then become insanity in this gentleman, or is it still a repetition of evil? I think it's the same thing in a lot of cases. I'm no pastor or anything of that sort, but it sure seems to me that there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, there was one more clip that I had from Herman Berchiger that was sort of, sage advice for people going forward, especially here in Oregon, where we're, facing a situation where, there's a Democrat supermajority. And, we just are constantly being stepped on. And here's that clip.
Our last primary we had here last May, almost a year ago, a lot of people didn't turn out to vote. Please vote. Please talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors. Spread the word. Let's take this state back, and let's take this country back, and it starts with people just like you. Thank you. God bless all.
There you go. That's certainly good advice. Mm-hmm. Well, I've run through my gamut of clips and stories to reference. That went better and faster than I thought it would. And so if you like this conversation and you want to see more of them, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notified every time there's a video out. And I vowed never to have a Facebook page again. But I realized in a very short period of time, if you're going to produce content and you're going to put it out there for people, to try and help move the needle in a particular direction, you have to be able to present it to them where they are. So I have rejoined Facebook. I'm not going to be doing much on my page other than having another page that will contain this podcast. And so you'll be able to find it there, and you'll be able to find it on YouTube. And I thank you very much, Brian, for joining me. And hopefully this is the first of many.
All right. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, no problem.